Look at the table, lads and lasses. 14th place in April. It's not where we thought would be after that Carabao Cup high of last year. Eddie Howe is a club legend. He has broke the trophy drought, but the data is screaming at us. Our goals against, of course, is up 15% from last season. We've become predictable. But before we talk about who replaces Eddie, we need to talk about why Eddie might need to go for his own sake. Now, when I mean that, I mean, does Eddie Howe need to do a similar arc that we saw Sir Bobby Robson do in his managerial career? We're seeing Bobby leave England to become a world-class manager at teams like PSV Eindhoven, Porto, and the list goes on. You know, Bobby's education in them foreign leagues seen him go on to win the Arrivadas twice. It's seen him go on to go to Porto and win the Primeira Division twice, the Taça Portugal once, the Super Taça de Olive once, and of course Barcelona, where he won the Copa del Rey, the Supercopa de España, and the European Cup Winners' Cup, all in one season with Barcelona. Now, does Eddie Howe need to go a similar path to that? I think he does. Looking at it, he needs to hone his craft. He needs to become a better manager. Now, he has already done this when he left Bournemouth. He went and took a sabbatical. He went away. He honed his craft. He came back and he managed us. And he has been managing us since, of course, coming back into the game after that sabbatical away to hone his craft in Europe. But does he need to go and hone his craft in a managerial sense of going and managing some clubs in the foreign leagues like Bobby Robson did, like Sir Bobby did? And we've seen other managers do it as well, the likes of Vincent Kompany. He wasn't all that great at Burnley, Vincent Kompany, in the Premier League, but he has went to the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich. He's honing his craft and he's becoming a better manager for it. And I think that's what Eddie Howe needs to do. That's what Eddie Howe is missing. That experience at the elite level, at the high level of the game, European football, Champions League football, season upon season, or Europa League football, just European football, season upon season, is what Eddie Howe needs to hone his craft on. And he needs to improve himself on a personal level as a manager, and it would hugely benefit his career going forward. Now, that means that at some point we could see possibly Eddie Howe come back to Newcastle United as a more established manager once he's honed his craft. You know, at the end of the day, just because he'd be leaving Newcastle United or getting sacked by Newcastle United doesn't mean that at some point down the line, you know, we wouldn't see Eddie Howe coming back to Newcastle United as a more established manager. There is always, you know, that chance that we could see that. But as of right now, the Eddie Howe that we are seeing is not the Eddie Howe that first came into Newcastle United and was showing that intensity and that drive. This is an Eddie Howe that seems to be really tired, seems to look like he needs to go away and learn a bit more of the craft and experience at the top level, which is where, you know, as any manager wants to be, is that European level, playing Champions League football season upon season. And unfortunately, yes, we've had a brilliant Champions League campaign this season, but Eddie is not quite at that level yet where we can be consistent European competitors. And that is troublesome for us because that is where PIF want us to be. That is the aim of PIF and the Reuben brothers, is to have Newcastle United playing in the biggest competition you can play in as a club, which is the Champions League. And if we can't get that season upon season, then that is a worrying factor, because that then puts a fork in the goal of being the number one club in the world, the best club in the world, which is the aim of PIF, and it has been reiterated many, many times by the likes of David Hopkinson, Yasser Al-Rahmani, and so many other hierarchy at Newcastle United that we want to be the #1 club in the world. And at the moment, we are currently 14th in the Premier League in April, and that is not backing up the claims of us being the #1 club in the world by 2030. And of course, conceding 15% more goals than what were conceded last year as well is not a good look. So, as I've said, I think Eddie Howe needs to take a similar path that we've seen Sir Bobby take when he was a manager, of course, and go away to the foreign leagues, learn how to get the tactics going, get the trophies, win a few trophies in the foreign leagues, hone your craft, and then come back one day to Newcastle United as a better manager for it. Eddie has, 42% win ratio, and that, shows that there's definitely something that needs to be done on a personal level for Eddie Howe. But with that being said, this is where we'll look at the successors tier, who would come in as the successor to Eddie Howe if Eddie Howe was to leave or Eddie Howe was to be sacked come the end of this Premier League season. And that is where we'll look at the statement step. Jose Mourinho's being linked with where Roberto Mancini's being linked with where there's also Adoni Iraola, which is pretty much Eddie 2.0. But look at the stats of what Irola's been doing at Bournemouth. He looks like a much better version of Eddie than Eddie is right now for us. Because looking at what has happened to Iraola at Bournemouth, he's seen the likes of Dean Huijsen, Sabani, Semenyo, big named signings that they made, disappearing from his team, being sold from the team, and yet he is still doing impressive stuff with Bournemouth, and he's still going into games against the likes of Spurs, against the likes of Man U, Chelsea, Arsenal, and he's getting results in them games, and that's what we're not seeing Eddie Howe do right now. We're not seeing Eddie Howe this season going into them games and getting results against them teams, which is a worrying factor when we want to be competing for a Premier League title someday, soon, hopefully. We need to be beating them teams, and we also need to be beating the other teams, what we are lacking to do this season as well. The likes of Sunderland, who only just came into the Premier League this season, we lost both of them games against them, and that is unacceptable when you consider that we are meant to be one of the top teams in the Premier League, and when you're getting beat by your rivals who have been out of the Premier League for as long as Sunderland have, twice in one season, it's not a good look. So that in itself right there is why I would possibly look at somebody like Iraola coming in, but we'll look at the statement one, and that is where you look at Jose Mourinho. The resurrection in Portugal tells you all you need to know, and the numbers don't lie with Jose Mourinho neither. And there's a whole unfinished business sort of situation going on there with Jose Mourinho, with Sir Bobby being his mentor, Jose the student, and Jose has always called himself a little magpie. He always loves it when he comes to St James's Park and he goes and stands in the centre circle, has a moment. It's Sir Bobby's home, it's Robson's home, and I think with Jose Mourinho, you'll get the standards that at the moment, as of recording of this, the standards have definitely slipped from where we want to be. And I think Jose Mourinho would reclaim that. He put a standard where, he does not want Newcastle to drop below, and that is what you get with Jose Mourinho. Now, yes, he is older than Eddie Howe. Don't get us wrong, he is older than Eddie Howe, but I think looking at what he's doing right now, Jose Mourinho is still proving that he is at the top of his game. And yes, he's older, but he'd bring that experience to the dugout. And I think 26 trophies, a 62.5% win ratio Benfica is something, that we cannot ignore. And I mean, it's written in the stars. Jose calls, Bobby his mentor. He's fixed everything at Benfica with a 1.89 goals per game ratio. And if you want, a trophy in the next season or the coming seasons, which PIF obviously do, and they want to get, as many trophies as possible and start building the team up to be that global number one that they want in the team to be, then Jose is the only phone call you make for that purpose and that purpose alone. If you want to take the safe step towards the future of Newcastle United, you look at the free agent coming up this summer, Andoni Iraola, 38% win ratio, contextual, of course, by Bournemouth's and Rio Varoca's budgets. He's always been the manager of an underdog side, and yet he is still pulling up impressive numbers. He's leaving Bournemouth in May. He plays that heavy metal press we love, but with more tactical flexibility than we've seen lately from Eddie. He's an Eddie 2.0. Same energy, but fresh ideas. So if you want to take the safe step where you don't have to do too much of a turnover, which is maybe a possible option here, then Andoni Iraola is probably the safe step, and it doesn't mean too much of a turnover from what we're doing now with the play style of Eddie Howe. But the identity step is where the wild card comes in. This is where Javi Hernandez comes in. Yes, he hasn't managed a whole load of games, but this is sort of like that Pep Guardiola moment at Manchester City, a massive 64.4% career win rate. And yes, some of that is from Middle Eastern leagues of Al Sadd, managing Al Sadd, of course, but then you've got Barcelona, which cannot be, underappreciated what Javi did at Barcelona. He doesn't get the respect that he deserves for what he did at Barcelona as well. And this is that global super club play. 243 goals in 143 games at Barcelona. If we want to move away from the British core and start playing at that champagne football, that Pep Guardiola-esque technical style football, then Javi is the guy. But can, he do it at St James's? We'll have to wait and see, if we were to go down that path. But he's got all the attributes of that kind of manager, and that is, looking at this season, the way we've been playing, that seems to be the approach that PIF and the Reuben brothers are trying to adapt to Newcastle and adopt to Newcastle, is that tiki-taka technical style football. And unfortunately, Eddie Howe isn't that manager. Eddie Howe is the, front foot aggressive style manager, and PIF and the Reuben brothers, they're trying to get Newcastle to go in that tiki-taka technical style. Eddie's trying to play that tiki-taka technical style, and we don't have the players for it once you get past the likes of Bruno and Meili and Halsey. You're looking at other players like Anthony Gordon, who's more suited to that front foot aggressive style football. Anthony Elanga, more suited to that front foot aggressive style football. And then, of course, you've got Johan Wissa, who was signed in the summer as well. Again, more suited to that front foot aggressive style and high intensity style football. We need more players that can come in that similar mold to Bruno Guimaraes, Halsey, Meili, them kinds of players, because they're more suited to that technical side of the game. They're more suited to that tiki-taka style football that we've seen, Pep Guardiola do at Manchester City. And when you look at it and you compare, the technical side of things, where Pep Guardiola does that tiki-taka style of football, yes, it's boring, it's not attractive to watch, it's not entertaining to watch, but it does win you games, it does win you trophies, and that is what is important as a football club, is to win the games and is to win the trophies. It doesn't matter how attractive or how entertaining the game is, because you're going to get that excitement, you're going to get that energy, you're going to get that passion when you're winning the trophies. As a fan, all I care about is that Newcastle go into games, we win the games, we perform at the best that we can in them games. And right now, as of today, recording this video, we are nowhere near that standard that we should be at. And the standards have slipped, and they've slipped quite far down the pecking order, and we need to get them standards back, because we want to be the number one in the world, and we can't be that if we're sitting 14th in the table and getting Europe one season, then missing a season, then Europe, then missing a season. That's not the way forward, and that's not the way PIF see it, and that's not the way the Rubens see it, and that is not the way our CEO David Hopkinson sees it as well. The potential is there, the drive is there. We've got the players, at least some of, want to be at Newcastle United and want to play for this team. And then the other players who aren't pulling their weight, you know, we need to offload them. We need to get rid of them. We need to go and buy more players with that drive, like Bruno's got, more players with that drive that Halsey's got, more players with that drive that Lewis Miley's got. You know, we need players with that philosophy, with that temperament to be able to go into games and perform at their best every single game. Doesn't matter if you're playing a Champions League night at the Nou Camp, or if you're playing at a 10k stadium that's only just came into the Premier League in a newly promoted side. The intensity and the level of passion by the players and the commitment by the players should be at the same level, no matter it being a rainy night in Stoke or the Nou Camp. At the end of the day, the passion and the drive should still be the same, because that is the only way we're going to get where we want to get to. And for me, the identity step is Javi, the safe step is Arola, and the statement one is Jose Mourinho. And the numbers of their managers don't lie. The stats of their managers don't lie. And let us know, you know, what you think down in the comments below. But I mean, here's the question I'm leaving you with. Is Eddie Howe a great manager? Yes. But was Sir Bobby Robson the legend we know today before he went to Porto and Barcelona? Was he a good manager? He was, you know, and he become a legend abroad. And that is what Eddie Howe needs to do. So that is the question I'm leaving you with. For Eddie to come back and possibly one day lead Newcastle to the Premier League title, you know, he needs to first go leave St James's Park behind. And I may be being too harsh here, but we need to be looking at bringing in either of their managers. Or do you have your own opinion on a manager that would be better suited to Newcastle United? Let us know down in the comments below. But till next time, like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. However, lads.